We all build our lives around certain truths, especially about the people we love. For 7 years, my truth was the life Riley and Jordan shared in Denver. A life filled with trust, renovating our dream home, planning a future I believed in completely. I thought I knew Jordan inside and out, but then Jordan did something deceptive. An action that fundamentally fractured the foundation of our relationship. Here's the crucial part. Jordan thought they were being clever. Perhaps that I wouldn't notice, or maybe wouldn't care enough to react. They continued on as normal, completely unaware of the shift inside me. They saw my calm exterior and assumed ignorance or acceptance. But beneath that calm, I saw everything. Their betrayal wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of mine. A meticulous plan began to form, one Jordan had no inkling of. They damaged our relationship, yes, but they truly had no idea what was coming next. Jordan's betrayal cut so deep, why it triggered such a calculated response later on. You need to see the picture they shattered. Let's rewind past that moment of fracture I mentioned. Our story, Riley and Jordan's story, began almost a decade ago, in Seattle. It was one of those easy, almost immediate connections, mutual friends, a rainy Friday night trivia game. And suddenly we were inseparable. Jordan was captivating, ambitious, outgoing, knew how to work a room, driven by career goals. That seemed excitingly grand. I, Riley, was quieter, finding fulfillment in my graphic design work, valuing stability, cherishing the process of building a cozy, creative life. We were different, yes, but in the beginning it felt like the best kind of difference, like puzzle pieces clicking perfectly into place. Jordan's ambition spurred me on, and my steadiness seemed to ground Jordan. It felt like balance. When Jordan got a major career opportunity in Denver a few years later, moving felt like the natural next step in our adventure. We found this beautiful, slightly neglected Victorian house near Washington Park. It needed work, a lot of work, but we saw its potential immediately. That house became our shared obsession, our canvas. Weekends were lost in a haze of sanding floors, choosing impossible paint colors, arguing playfully over light fixtures, collapsing onto dusty drop cloths with takeout pizza, exhausted but happy for Betrayal. Wood and plaster, we were pouring the foundation of our future. Brick by metaphorical brick, we pictured hosting Thanksgiving dinners in the dining room we painstakingly restored, watching future kids play in the backyard, growing old together on the porch swing we hung that first summer. I remember feeling utterly secure in that future. In us, I poured my savings into that house alongside Jordan's, managed the renovation budget meticulously, invested my time, my energy, my creative vision. My trust in Jordan was absolute, built not just on love, but on the thousands of shared moments, the mutual support during tough times, like when my father was ill, or when Jordan faced a challenging project at work. That deep investment, that complete vulnerability. Well, psychologists often talk about how betrayal trauma cuts deeper when the level of trust and integration is profound, when your sense of self and security is so deeply interwoven with the relationship. The breach feels like an existential threat, not just an emotional wound. The first signs that something was wrong were subtle, easy to dismiss when wrapped in the cocoon of daily life and trust. Jordan's late nights at the office became more frequent, sometimes stretching into impromptu, overnight strategy sessions. There was a new, sudden insistence on privacy around their phone and laptop, explained away with a casual, new work protocols, super sensitive project, data, you know how it is. Financial conversations became slightly more opaque too. Jordan, who had always been transparent about finances, started handling certain bills or investment decisions more unilaterally, often with reassurances like, "Don't worry your creative head about this boring stuff, Riley. I've got it handled. I felt flickers of unease, tiny questions at the back of my mind, but I actively suppressed them. Confirmation bias, perhaps, or just the powerful human desire to believe in the reality you've invested so much in. Questioning Jordan felt like questioning the very foundation of our life, and who willingly does that? But reality has a way of intruding, whether you want it to or not. The undeniable proof didn't arrive with a confession or a dramatic scene. It arrived quietly, digitally, accidentally. For work had bought a new tablet, supposedly for work presentations, and had synced several accounts, including personal messages and cloud storage, likely forgetting about the shared aspects. One evening, while looking for a shared document related to our house insurance, I stumbled upon messy threads that clearly weren't work-related. Intimate, explicit messages with someone I didn't know, discussing recent meetups, future plans, all time-stamped during Jordan's supposed late nights or business trips. My blood ran cold. Sickened, I dug further. A Cloud Sense folder contained photos, not explicit but undeniably intimate, taken in hotel rooms I recognized from Jordan's recent travel itineraries. And then came the financial link, cross-referencing dates from the messages with our joint credit cards, statements and savings, account withdrawals, accounts Jordan primarily managed, but I had access to, revealed a pattern. Expensive dinners I wasn't at, hotel bookings coinciding with the messages, significant cash withdrawals labeled vaguely as expenses or client entertainment. That suddenly made horrifying sense. It wasn't just infidelity. Jordan was actively using our shared resources, the money we were saving for our future, the funds tied to our home, to finance this secret life. The impact was visceral. It wasn't explosive anger. Not at first. It was a deep, gut-wrenching sorrow, a profound sense of disillusionment that seemed to suck the air out of the room. The person I loved, the life I cherished, the future I was banking on. It all felt like an elaborate, cruel mirage. The trust wasn't just broken. It felt retroactively erased, poisoning every memory, every shared laugh, every whispered I love you. This was the first cut, the initial deep wound that severed the lifeline of belief. The betrayal wasn't just about sex or lies. It was about the fundamental violation of partnership, the calculated theft of shared intimacy, shared resources, and a shared future. Jordan hadn't just stepped outside the relationship. They had actively eroded its foundations from within, using the resources meant to build it up. And the worst part, at that moment, they still had no idea I knew. After that initial wave of soul-crushing discovery, a strange sort of clarity emerged, sharp and cold. The immediate, instinctual urge was to confront Jordan, to lay the evidence out, to demand an explanation, perhaps foolishly hoping for remorse or a path back. But the sheer calculation evident in the messages, the cold financial transactions underpinning the infidelity, it stopped me. This wasn't a simple mistake. It was a conscious, ongoing pattern of deception. Confrontation without a strategy felt like walking into an ambush unarmed. Jordan would deny, deflect, manipulate. They'd likely already rehearsed the excuses in their head. So I made a decision that felt both necessary and deeply unnatural. I would play along. I would live inside the lie with them. At least for a while. Life continued, but it was like watching a movie of my own life from a distance. We maintained the routines. Shared meals were maintained. The food tasted like ash. Discussions about work colleagues I no longer cared about. Planning social events that felt like walking through thick mud. Outwardly, I aimed for strained normalcy, perhaps a little quieter, my be seeming more tired, easily attributed to work stress. Inside, I felt like a hollowed-out version of myself, numb one moment, seething with silent rage the next, grieving the relationship that was already dead, even though Jordan didn't know it yet. It was an incredibly isolating experience, being intimately close to someone who had become, essentially, a stranger and an adversary. Every casual touch felt like a violation, every shared laugh a dissonant chord. Jordan, meanwhile, seemed to relax as the weeks passed without an explosion. Perhaps they interpreted my quietness, my lack of pointed questions after the initial tablet discovery, which I'd covered by pretending I couldn't find the insurance document and giving up, as acceptance or even up, more likely as proof of my ignorance. Their carelessness seemed to increase. The late nights became more frequent, the explanations flimsier. Sometimes there were moments of exaggerated affection, bringing home flowers unexpectedly, suggesting romantic date nights, which felt less like genuine connection and more like attempts to smooth over their own guilt or ensure my continued complacency. It was performative and sickeningly transparent now that my eyes were open. Were times I tested the waters, making subtle observations just to gauge a reaction. A comment like, "That conference in Chicago seemed expensive based on this credit card statement. Hope the company reimbursement covers it all," wasn't met with open discussion, but with deflection or gaslighting. "Oh, you know how those corporate rates are, Riley. Don't worry about it, or worse, are you keeping tabs on me now? You seem really stressed lately. My baby, you should take some time off." This is classic gaslighting, the insidious tactic of manipulating someone into questioning their own sanity or perception of reality. Recognizing it for what it was didn't make it hurt less, but it did solidify my resolve. It showed me Jordan wasn't just deceitful. They were actively willing to undermine my mental state to protect their lies, while outwardly playing the part of the unsuspecting partner. Inwardly I became methodical. The emotional turmoil needed an outlet, and it found one in meticulous documentation. I started a password-protected digital journal, hidden deep within unrelated work files on my personal computer. In it, I logged at everything, dates and times of suspicious absences, inconsistencies in Jordan's stories, detailed notes on financial discrepancies. I discreetly saved screenshots of incriminating messages before they could be deleted, downloaded bank and credit card statements regularly, photographed receipts or unexplained cash withdrawal slips Jordan carelessly left around. It felt cold, almost clinical, this gathering of evidence against the person I still shared a bed with. But it was also empowering. It was the one area where I felt I had some control, turning their carelessness into my ammunition. Each piece of evidence felt like reclaiming a small piece of the truth they had tried to obliterate. The final breaking point, moment that extinguished any lingering flicker of doubt about needing to leave, came during what should have been a happy occasion. My parents' anniversary dinner. We were at a nice restaurant downtown celebrating. Jordan was in full charm mode, laughing with my dad, complimenting my mom, playing the role of the perfect, attentive partner. But throughout the dinner, I saw Jordan's phone constantly, subtly angled under the table. A slight reflection off a water glass confirmed what I suspected. They were engaged in a continuous, smiling text exchange with the other person, right there, while holding my hand under the table and discussing summer vacation plans with my family. The sheer, breathtaking audacity of it, the profound disrespect not just to me but to my family, to the pretense of the life we were supposedly sharing. It snapped something inside me. The grief and numbness were replaced by a cold, hard certainty. This wasn't fixable. The person I loved was either gone or had never truly existed as I perceived them. Leaving the restaurant that night, I knew I couldn't continue living this way. The charade had become unbearable, but I also knew I couldn't just walk out the door unprepared. Jordan's financial entanglement with my life, the house, the shared assets, combined with their proven capacity for deceit, meant I needed a plan, not just an emotional exit, but a strategic, legally sound extraction. The phase of silent observation was over. It was time to start architecting my escape. The certainty I felt leaving that anniversary dinner wasn't fiery anger anymore. It was cold, hard resolve. The emotional phase of discovery and quiet endurance was over. It was time to shift from passive observer to active architect of my own future. This wasn't about lashing out or seeking revenge in the heat of the moment. It was about strategic disengagement, about ensuring that when the dust settled, I wouldn't be dust settled, left emotionally and financially devastated by Jordan's choices. I started thinking of it as Operation Safeguard, a plan focused squarely on protecting my well-being, my assets, and ensuring a separation grounded in fairness and truth, not further manipulation. My very first concrete step was seeking professional legal guidance. Living in Denver, I knew I needed someone local who understood Colorado family law, particularly concerning complex financial situations and infidelity linked to asset misuse. I spent hours discreetly researching attorneys online during lunch breaks or late at night, looking for specialists known not just for competence, but for discretion and a strategic mindset. That's how I found Laura Chen. Her profile emphasized exactly these areas, and reviews spoke of her calm demeanor combined with sharp legal acumen. Our first consultation felt like stepping out of a fog. I booked it under the guise of a personal development workshop, requiring a day off, sitting in her quiet, professional office, laying out the timeline, the messages, the financial spreadsheets I'd compiled. It was daunting, but also incredibly validating. Laura listened patiently, asked clarifying questions, and then laid out the legal realities clearly and concisely. Riley, she explained, while Colorado is a no-fault divorce state, meaning infidelity itself isn't grounds, the financial aspect changes things. Funds to support this affair constitute dissipation of marital asset. That is something the court takes very seriously when dividing property. This was a critical piece of information, the legal hook to address the financial betrayal. Laura stressed the absolute importance of meticulous documentation, praising the journal and evidence I'd already gathered, but she also emphasized the need for proactive, protective steps before Jordan had any inkling I was planning to leave. The element of surprise is crucial right now for safeguarding your financial stability, she advised. Once you signal intent to separate, assets can sometimes disappear or become harder to track. Following Laura's precise guidance, Operation Safeguard moved into high gear. First, we worked to formally quantify the dissipated assets, tracing every hotel bill, lavish dinner, gift, and unexplained cash withdrawal linked to the affair back to our joint accounts or credit cards. It wasn't about nickel and diming. It was about establishing a clear legal claim for reimbursement during the eventual settlement. Second, and crucially, I opened a new checking and savings account at a different bank solely in my name. Discreetly set up a new direct deposit for my salary to this account. Laura assured me this was perfectly legal. My income was mine, but doing it quietly prevented Jordan from potentially trying to interfere or drain accessible joint funds out of spite or panic when served with papers. Third, we systematically gathered formal documentation. Laura's office subpoenaed official credit card statements going back years, confirming the patterns I'd observed. We obtained copies of bank records, investment account statements, pay stubs, and importantly, our past joint tax returns. I made copies of property deeds for the house, car titles, insurance policies, anything proving shared ownership or value, and stored these copies securely at my sister's place outside the city. It felt cloak and dagger, but Laura stressed it was standard procedure in potentially contentious separations involving financial misconduct. We also addressed the house near Washington Park, our biggest joint asset and emotional investment. Laura prepared the initial legal arguments for a fair division, acknowledging my significant non-financial contributions during the renovation and strongly positioning the dissipated marital funds as a factor that needed to be accounted for in the equity split, potentially leading to an unequal division in my favor, or forcing a buyout sale on terms advantageous to me. Living through this phase was a tightrope walk, maintaining the facade with the tightrope walk. Jordan, while executing these detailed plans, required constant vigilance. There were days filled with crippling anxiety. What if Jordan found out prematurely? What if I missed a crucial document? There was also a lingering sadness, a grief for the future we were supposed to have, sitting alongside the grim determination to see this through. The secrecy felt heavy at times, but Laura constantly reminded me it was a necessary shield, not an act of malice. It was about leveling the playing field against a partner who had already demonstrated a profound willingness to deceive and financially undermine me. Each document secured, each legal angle prepared, each protective financial step taken chipped away at the anxiety and replaced it with a growing sense of preparedness. The emotional storm Jordan had unleashed was still raging inside me, but now I was building a seawall, meticulously, stone by stone. Was no longer just an idea, it was a fully architected, legally sound reality, waiting only for the right moment to be unveiled. Jordan continued planning weekend trips, completely oblivious that I was planning my exit. The execution of Operation Safeguard wasn't marked by fireworks or shouting matches. It unfolded with quiet, legal precision on an ordinary Tuesday morning. While Jordan was likely mapping out another week of deception, perhaps preparing for one of their important work meetings, a professional legal courier arrived at our Denver house. They served Jordan with divorce papers, effective immediately. Bundled with the petition was Laura Chen's initial disclosure statement, a concise, bulletproof summary of the documented infidelity, the traced financial transactions, the quantified dissipation of marital assets we had so carefully prepared. I wasn't there to witness it. I chose to be at Laura's office, coordinating the official court filing. Distance felt important. This wasn't a conversation, it was a declaration backed by undeniable fact. Jordan's reaction, filtered through a subsequent barrage of frantic voicemails and increasingly furious texts, was exactly what Laura had predicted: utter shock, disbelief morphing rapidly into sputtering rage, then attempts at deflection and minimization, quickly followed by panic pleading when they realized the sheer volume of evidence meant their usual tactics were useless. Ground had simply vanished beneath their feet. Their carefully constructed world, predicated on my perceived ignorance, imploded the moment they saw the documented proof of their lies. Because we were so thoroughly prepared, the legal separation process, while still emotionally taxing, avoided the protracted, manipulative battles Jordan might otherwise have waged. The evidence spoke for itself, forcing a level of honesty about the finances and enabling a fair settlement that accounted for settlement. The funds they had squandered. The primary feeling wasn't triumphant victory, but an overwhelming, cleansing wave of relief. It was the quiet dawn after a long dark storm, the freedom of finally stepping out of a suffocating lie and breathing clean air. Yes, there was a lingering sadness for the dream that died, for the 7 years invested in a mirage, But far stronger was the sense of empowerment, of having navigated the storm, protected myself, and reclaimed my own narrative, Self-worth. The most profound lesson wasn't about catching a liar. It was about learning the power of quiet preparation, the necessity of firm boundaries, and the importance of trusting my own intuition, even when it was painful. Choosing decisive, informed action over passive acceptance changed everything. Rebuilding my life now, on my own terms, feels like a true new beginning. If you've ever felt trapped in a situation built on lies, or had to find the courage to walk away and then reclaim your life, I hope this story reminds you of your own strength. Hit like if you believe in the power of truth and resilience, and subscribe for more stories about navigating life's complex challenges. What's one boundary you've learned is absolutely non-negotiable for you? Share your wisdom in the comments below, and click here to watch another story about turning the tables when trust is broken.